This is my truck VIN. It's a diesel. It's December. The letter of the word today is D. And we're going to do a cold start. Haven't taken this anywhere today. It's cold outside. And we're going to go through it. So you turn the key on, let it ding for a little while, and then you see where it says wait to start in red. Just wait for that to go out. The camera feels like it's zoomed in. Takes a little while. There's a heater grid. These don't have glow plugs. You just crank it and there it goes. And then those come back on for a little bit. You wait till those go. You can see there's some white smoke. You get that when it's cold. Got some redneck chairs hanging out on the back of the house. Anyway, I usually let it warm up a little bit before taking off. With a diesel, it's a little bit different than a gasoline motor. A gasoline motor requires on an ignition system, and the ignition system burns the fuel. You have a exhaust stroke and an ignition stroke, and every other one will fire the spark plug and make the engine run. Well, a diesel's different. A diesel requires heat and pressure to ignite the diesel fuel. So basically there's no spark plug. There's nothing that makes it ignite except for the heat and the compression. Diesel engines, they have a 24 volt starter. They run a couple of batteries that are 12 volt, two under the hood, so that it'll crank over that engine, because it's a lot harder to turn because it's a lot higher compression. And that compression is what makes the diesel start up or run. There's a cool video, David of Davidsfarm, who's one of my inspirator. It sounds like a ventilator or something, but he inspired me to start doing these videos like this because I really liked some of the stuff that he was doing. He did one on his bulldozer. On his bulldozer, it's got a gasoline engine that it uses to start in the cold. And of course, he lives up in Canada, but the gasoline engine would start the engine rotating, and then it'd have a valve switch over thing where the same engine would switch over to running on diesel after it got warmed up. And that's a cool idea. But if you take I had a physics class on the college level. A guy gets out, what was it? If I can remember his name, I'll share it with you. But he takes a glass tube with a piston that fits into the glass tube, and at the bottom he takes a little piece of lint out of his pocket, and or out of somebody else's pocket, I think it was. Puts a lint in the bottom. Takes this little glass tube with the lint in the bottom, puts a piston in it, and then he just goes BAM on the counter and hits it down, and the lint lit right up just because of the compression. Just as that pressure, more pressure you have, the more heat you get, especially real quick like that. And that's what Rudolf Diesel discovered was a fire piston. Somebody from one of the Polynesian islands, their fire piston or whatever got in the hands of somebody. He was in, I think he was in Paris, France. His parents moved there around World War I. He's an interesting guy. I'd check out Rudolf Diesel. There's a bunch of stuff on Wikipedia and everything else. But he saw that. He's like, wow, you could run an engine off of peanut oil. He was in the refrigeration business at the time. And refrigeration requires a lot of, compressors and tubing and plumbing and all that kind of stuff. So he invented the diesel engine. He invented it to run on peanut oil because, it was something that was cheap. It was in abundance. And thought, man, a farmer that grew peanuts could have his own oil, to run his own tractors and vehicles and everything. He says, this is fantastic. This is just going to revolutionize everything. It's going to completely change the world. And it kind of did. The oil companies have maintained, the gasoline engines around long enough, but gasoline engines are a lot more convenient to start in the cold than diesels are. But diesels, you get a lot of compression, torque. I don't know what else to share with you. My mind just goes crazy. Diesels, I love them. They're awesome. So anyway, that's the cold start of this one. Give it a couple of revs. Notice that the RPMs, at red lines at just over 3,000 RPMs. Most vehicles, they'd have a lot higher RPMs, and RPMs, revolutions per minute. You're having to charge that cylinder with fuel for each revolution. So that's one of the key secrets to the fuel economy that you can get in a diesel, is because it's so high in torque, because it's high in compression, that you don't need to have as many revolutions per minute. This one's a turbo diesel. turbos are a forced induction setup. There's two popular forced induction things. I'm going to go off on a tangent just a little longer, bear with me. But a turbo uses the exhaust gases. In fact, we'll get under there. I may have to turn this off because it's so loud. This one, this particular truck has really fat exhaust so that it doesn't have as much restriction. The biggest restriction on this is the... Yeah, I'm going to have to turn that off. Here's the throttle. The throttle's connected directly to the injection pump pretty much. There's no throttle butterfly. You'll notice that this is the intake. Instead of having a throttle butterfly that opens up, it just uses the injection pump to increase the fuel delivery. So rather than yelling, I'm going to turn this off and we're going to talk about turbos here for just a minute. No. Yeah. She's playing alphabet games. I got her started on it, and so I thought I'd sneak in a video. So, anyway. Do you want to come be in the video? You want to come hang out? We're going to talk about turbos. Do you know what a turbo is? I'll show you. Here, you can stand on the winch. Winch is a good place to stand. You see this right here? This is a turbo. And a turbo runs off the exhaust. This is the exhaust manifold. This is where all the smoke...
Where can I sit?
You just kind of have to stand there, actually. It won't take long. So anyway, the exhaust comes out from here, and the exhaust drives the turbine in here. And when it drives the turbine, it's hooked to a shaft that grabs the air from the intake that comes in from the intake, and it forces it through the turbine, through the intercooler. Oh, please.
A leaf got into your truck.
That's okay. The more the merrier, I always say. So anyway, being that the turbine and all this stuff runs off the exhaust where it's really hot where it first comes out, it has to have cooling. So you've got cooling lines that go to it, but you also have these oil lines to lubricate it because it turns really fast. So anyway, that's one means of forced induction. Another one is to use a supercharger, and a supercharger runs off a belt. They'll have a belt, like say you've got your fan belt down here, will run up over a belt, and then the belt will turn a pump, and the pump forces the intake air into the engine. So that's the other kind of forced induction. Now with those, it robs a little power off of the crankshaft in order to do that. This is getting blown out one way or another, so it is a little bit more efficient. Disadvantage of the turbo is that they can spin backwards. They're expensive when they fail, and I don't know, they tend to self-destruct somewhat compared to a supercharger. But that's how a turbo works. What do you think?
Good.
Can you show me where the turbo is? Can you point to the turbo?
Where is it?
You don't remember? See this big donut looking thing? This is the turbo. This whole thing right here. So where's the turbo? That's right. Good job. Where does the oil go in the engine? That's a good guess. This is where the oil goes in the engine. It goes right in this cap. This opens up. Do you think you'll see oil inside? Mm-hmm. So look inside. Is there oil in there? You about got it in your hair. Yep, there's oil in there, all right. Are you going to know all kinds of things about cars by the time you're 7? Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably so.
But